Hi, I'm Ernie Zor for Puritas Spring Software. This video is the second in a two-part series covering the new child support application called Revised Ohio Child Support Guidelines version 11, which I'll call Roxy 11 for short. I'll start by opening the file I worked on and saved in part 1. How do I do that? Well, I can click on the Open button and open the file like I would in any other application, or I can use the Recent File pull-down, which I'll do right now, and select the file I want. It just so happens that that was the last file, so I don't even have to pull it down. I will, and I'll just click on it. That's going to open up the file right where we left off. I kept it reasonably simple. The parent's sole income was from employment, and there were no adjustments. We left off with the income shares section of the sole shared worksheet, so we'll pick up part 2 here with the next section, support calculation. The support calculation section of the new worksheet consists of 4 lines. Line 18, which involves getting the annual support amount from the table. Line 19, which is the credit for parenting time granted to the non-custodial parent. Line 20, the credit for non-means-tested derivative benefits. And line 21, child care expenses. I'm going to scroll down to line 18 so we can get that on the screen here. Line 18 contains the value from the new support table. The previous support table went up to $150,000. This new one goes to $300,000. There are 3 things I noted about the table. One is that you can still use the 3 methods of looking up a value in the table. That is when the combined gross income falls between 2 table increments, which is all the time really. You can take the next lower row value, the next higher row value, or interpolate the in-between value. Normally it's set to interpolate and you never change it actually. A bit of information: for $100,000 of combined income and 1 child, the difference between the high and low value, I calculated it at $12, which is like, what, a dollar in a monthly order. So you can safely consider this to be an issue of minimal impact. All you do is check one of those 3 check boxes that you see there, and Roxy 11 does the rest. My second comment concerns situations where the combined gross income is more than $300,000 or whatever the table limit might be in the future. The old statute said a court could either use the top value in the table or use the percentage at the top value and apply that percentage to whatever the real combined gross income was. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I guess it doesn't really matter much now because it's been superseded anyway. For combined incomes greater than $300,000, the new statute says that the court should award support on a case-by-case basis, but not less than the top table value. The revised code site is ORC 3119.04. The application uses the top table value, and that's why the field is overridable for just those circumstances when it's over $300,000. Now, the third thing to note is related to situations where the number of children exceeds 6. Both the old and the new tables go from 1 to 6 children. Now, under the old law, if you had more than 6 children, you would use the value in the 6-child column of the table. So if there were 10 children, you would use the support amount for 6 children. Under the new law, it works differently. A multiplier is applied to the 3rd column, and that's the annual support figure. The ODJFS provides multipliers for from 7 to 15 children. I referred in part 1 to the shaded portion of the support table, and I mentioned that the shaded portion was significant when there are more than 6 children. The significance is this: if the combined gross income falls into a shaded area of the table, you don't use a multiplier, and instead you just use the 3-child value regardless of the number of children. Incidentally, you can see the tables by clicking on that item from the Help menu, but I'm not going to do that now due to time constraints. That's pretty much it for talking about the support table, and that brings us to line 19. This is new to the child support calculation, at least as a line number it is anyway. It allows for a 10% reduction in child support if there is a parenting order that provides for 90 or more overnight visitations per year. This new provision is similar to deviating based on extended visitation, which I'll get to when I come to line 25B in a moment. Next is line 20, labeled derivative benefit. It's the counterpart to lines 23B and 26B in the old worksheet. It's an adjustment for non-means tested derivative benefits that are payable to a child on behalf of a parent. There's nothing new here. Just remember that, like it says, it's a derivative benefit, so you want to put the amount and give the proper parent credit by putting it in the column of the parent from whom the benefit derives. The last line in the support calculation section is line 21, child care. It's been expanded a bit, but I'm going to get as much of it on the screen as I can. There we go. First, the new definition of qualifying child care expenses includes employment-related expenses only. That's ORC 3119.01C2. You may remember that the old statute allowed employment and educational-related expenses. Next, you're going to look at line 21, and you probably have done that already, and go, what happened? Well, don't be put off. It looks worse than it is. One difference is that there is a maximum allowed cost based on a child's age, and the allowable support adjustment is actually the lesser of the actual out-of-pocket child care expenses or the maximum allowable amount. Other than that, the rest of the calculation is the same. Essentially, you take the allowable expenses and subtract the federal and state credits. What's left is the adjustment to annual child support, to the annual child support obligation. I noticed that the new worksheet specifically includes the state credits, where previously that was the subject of some debate. Now, earlier I mentioned that the shaded portion of the support table was important with respect to two lines of the worksheet. The first was line 18, where we were calculating the support obligation when there are more than 6 children, which I already covered. The second was here on line 21. If the combined gross income falls in the shaded area of the table, the parent gets preferential treatment in terms of the credit amount that will be subtracted from the allowable cost. Okay, just in case you thought that wasn't enough about the child care adjustment, I'm going to mention one more thing. The calculation can get to be tedious when both parents pay child care expenses for the same child and the costs exceed the maximum allowed. I don't know how likely that is, but if you do encounter a situation like that, you'll have to apportion the allowable costs between the two parents in proportion to their actual costs. And it's not rocket science, but it's something that the app handles rather easily. So when I said that you must apportion it, you'll apportion it, but actually the Roxy 11 is doing all the work. You're not really doing anything, actually. All right, anyway, having provided that explanation, I'll complete line 21. Or no, I already have completed line 21. Okay, here's how that worked out. I went over here, I clicked on the select button, and I selected from the pull down 3 to 5 years old. This pops up automatically, this $8,600. The actual out-of-pocket costs for parent B were $5,500. So when I put the $5,500 in there, you'll see that on line E here, the lower of $8,600, which is allowable, and the actual of $5,500, it took the $5,500. So the $5,500 is carried over here into parent B's column, and then it figures out the federal child care credit, $720, the state credit, $180, total of $900, and the net of that is $4,600. What happens next is that on line I, that $4,600 amount is multiplied by the line 17 percentages that each parent's income makes with respect to combined income, and that's how you end up with $29.90 in the parent A column and $16.10 in the parent B column. All right. Now the final, I think that's about all we want to cover with the parenting. I'm going to scroll down here to line 22 and just say that the final line of the adjustment section here, line 22, takes the parent's basic obligation on line 18. It subtracts the parenting time adjustment and the derivative benefit adjustment, and then it adds in the child care adjustment, and what's left is line 22, and that's each parent's adjusted obligation. The fifth and the second to last section in the worksheet is the calculation of cash medical support. I'm going to scroll that up just to get it up into the center there a little bit better. And very simply, it's $388.70 per child. And you just multiply that amount by the number of children. Here it was only one child. And then, again, we're taking that line 17 percentage like we did in line for the child care credit, rather, and we're applying that against that 388, and that's how you're ending up with the 252.66 in parent A column and 136.04 in parent B. We're applying that percentage. The last section, which I'm going to scroll into view a little better here, see if I can get the whole thing in there. There we go. Now, the last section is the recommended monthly orders for decree. And up to this point, all the figures that I've been working with are annual ones. Well, beginning with line 24, regular child support, cash medical support, and any deviations from them is expressed in monthly terms. Now, deviation comes into play on lines 25A and B. Line 25A covers the ORC 3119.23 factors that were close to but not exact duplicates of the considerations listed in the prior version of the statute. Earlier, I mentioned line 25B regarding deviation based on extended parenting time, and you remember that on line 19B, the non-custodial parent gets a 10% adjustment to their child support obligation when the court order provides for 90 or more overnight visitations. Presumably, line 25B is used when it's in the best interest of the child to allow more than a 10% adjustment. So it probably could be for either the best interest of the child or perhaps because there's way more than 90 overnight visitations, whatever. There is also a deviation dialog box for using some of the old tried and true algorithms for calculating deviation, but remember that in actuality there's not much of a help in the statute in terms of how to deviate. That's a the underlying maxim or the underlying consideration is best interest of the child. There's no statutorily endorsed formula for doing that. And at any rate, while the old worksheet had a line for deviation, the new one has two. Line 25 that I just mentioned is for deviating from the child support amount, and line 28 is for deviating from cash medical support. Again, there's no formula for calculating the deviation. The guiding principle is, again, the best interest of the child. Another change in this section is that the old worksheet resulted in two support amounts, one when the children were covered by health insurance and one when they weren't. The new worksheet produces only one amount. Unless the child support obligor is one parent and the cash medical support obligor is another, and I haven't seen that happen in any of my test cases, but I assume it's possible or they wouldn't design the worksheet that way. So that's the way the new worksheet works, basically, is it's just producing one amount. So the issue of health insurance is not directly addressed in the new worksheet, excepting line 8, which establishes a maximum over which a parent cannot be ordered to pay. Otherwise, the custodial parent is assumed to be the parent providing health insurance. And there's exceptions, like the other parent already has insurance, or the other parent just simply agrees to cover it, or the other parent can reasonably or can obtain reasonably priced insurance through their employment, those sorts of things. Now, I think I mentioned this before, and at least in one of the videos, you may be curious about, as I was, about how the new worksheet compares with the old one. So I took the same facts and plugged them into the old worksheet and the new one, and then I gave equal incomes to the parents and ran the guidelines from combined gross incomes ranging from $25,000 through $100,000. I prepared a spreadsheet with the results, and you can see that spreadsheet. I don't have access to it right now, but you can see that spreadsheet in FAQ video number 15 on YouTube. But what I learned from the comparison was that there's a notch at $60,000 combined gross income where the support increased under the new law by $50 per month. But for all other combined gross incomes, child support decreased. Also, the greater the combined gross income, the more the support decreased. And it's interesting to note that for combined gross incomes under $150,000, the difference between the old and new guidelines is less than $50 per month. So not really big changes there. The companion Part 1 video and this one should give you a decent instruction on how to complete the worksheet using Roxy 11. Remember, there are a couple hours of Puritas Spring software YouTube videos dealing with the child support worksheets, and even if they're using the old worksheet, there's plenty of material that carries right over to these new ones. So take a look if you want to know more about some of these issues. And that brings this video to a close. And before I go, I'd like to remind you that if you're interested in computer tips or technical support information, news, and other information that's of special interest to law offices, you should order our book, The Best of Law Office Computing. It's got all the best tips and other technical information that we've accumulated over the years. You can get the ebook at Amazon for only $9 and the paperback version for only $12. So, in conclusion, thanks for visiting our YouTube channel and viewing this video. I hope you visit us again soon, and until you do, I wish you all the best. Take care.